Hello, 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 hello. Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone at St. Peter's School. My name is Alistair Humphreys. I am an adventurer and an author. I've written books for children like The Boy Who Bite the World and The Girl Who Rode the Ocean, and picture books like Against the Odds, full of big, colourful spreads about different adventurers. And you guys, thank you, have been reading one of my books, Great Adventurers, for your English topic. And your wonderful, talented, heroic teachers, Miss Burton and Miss Warren, have sent in some questions, and I am going to answer them for you now. Question one, Miss Burton. Wow, Miss Burton has sent a very clever question. She must be a very clever teacher, so you all have to listen very hard to what she says because it's wise. Our school values are truthfulness, respect, perseverance, love, and joy. How well do you see examples of these in your book? Crikey, that is a hard question to start me off. Normally people ask me where I go to the toilet on adventures, but this one requires my brain to think. Right, when you go on an expedition or an adventure with somebody else, it is really, really hard, and you have a really hard time, and you're often frightened or sad or scared or bored or uncomfortable, generally having a bad time and struggling. And you might know yourselves, when you wake up, if you're tired, you tend to be grumpy and maybe a bit mean to your family. And so what I find on expeditions is that you really see deep into somebody's personality. And it's not always good what you see, because we're not always lovely, kind people. And this is just natural life on adventures when you're up a mountain or freezing cold. But let's say there's two of you. You're trying to, let's say, climb a mountain, and it's really hard and you're both struggling. The way that you get up there as a team is through some of these values, through respect. You have to believe that the other person there with you is good at what they do, a good person, trying their best, and you have to forgive them when they are annoying and irritating, because you yourself will be annoying and irritating. And for sure, perseverance is at the heart of adventures, and in some sort of way you very much love the person that you're on the expedition with, because you are trying to keep them alive and they are trying to keep you alive, and you're working together to succeed at this thing. And hopefully adventures are not just about suffering and misery, but they are also full of absolute joy. I think on my journeys I've had the highest joys of my life, and also the most miserable times as well. So you have the extreme. So that's a very good question from Miss Burton. Let's see how the rest of you can carry on after that. Next question. Who was the first adventurer you were inspired by? I remember very clearly when I was at school doing my A levels. So that means I was 18 at school, and I was supposed to be revising, studying, practicing for a big exam. And I was in the library at school. Physics, really boring. And I found this book, two books, one by Benedict Allen, who crossed the Amazon rainforest, and one by Ranulph Fiennes, who's done all sorts of mad things, usually in polar cold places. And those were the first two people who inspired me. And I just thought, wow, this seems more exciting than studying for my exams. And that was the first time I ever got thinking about adventures. Would you do any of the adventures you wrote about yourself? Yes, definitely. A lot of my own adventures have come because I've been inspired by reading about books, definitely. So in Great Adventurers, which is the book you've read, there's a few in here. Where are we? Wilfred Thesiger, page 72. He crossed big deserts with his camels. I did a similar part of his actual journey, following it along with a friend, but we had a big cart, not a camel. So there's definitely that one. Also, where Laurie Lee, page 18, Laurie Lee, who walks through Spain playing his violin, having a beautiful adventure, walking through Spain. I also walked through Spain myself, and actually I wrote a book about it. Let me show you how this is. Books are good things. I like books. Right, I need to find one more book. Here it is. Right. Let me show you the evolution, how adventures come out. Laurie Lee walked through Spain, and he wrote this book in the 1930s. And I read that book and thought, that's an amazing story. I love this guy. I'm going to write about him. So I wrote about him. Can you see the... whoops, how are we doing? You see the similarities. I can't, my camera's all backwards. The similarities there. So I wrote about him in this book. And then I myself went and walked through Spain and I wrote my own book. And can you see the similarities in the covers? Actually, if you look on YouTube, My Midsummer Morning, you can watch a 20-minute film of me playing my violin very badly through Spain. It's quite a funny, silly film. And there's another example. Oh, yes. The other example is... Where is it? Page 28. Dervla Murphy. She did really big, cool bike trips. And reading her book made me think, hey, I'd like to go do a big bike trip. And then that led to me going to cycle around the world. Ella says, why did you write only about adventurers? I wrote about adventurers because I'm an adventurer and that's my job, I guess. My job is going to do adventures and then working out ways to make money about them. I guess I could have written a book about other things I enjoy, but I wrote about adventurers because that's my job and that's what I write books about. Joy, how do you know so much about the people you wrote about? I know lots and lots and lots of things about adventurers because I read lots and lots of books. Look, I've got lots of books here. Reading books is the most brilliant thing you can do, by the way. If you think school is really boring, sorry, Miss Burton, if you think school's really boring, go to the library and say to the librarian, I think school's really boring. I would much rather learn about spaceships or oceans or anything that interests you, and your library will be able to give you a book and you'll find a whole world of interesting things that interest you. So I know a lot about adventures because I've read lots of books about adventures. Emily says, if you were to pick your favorite person that you wrote about, which would it be? That's a good question. My favorite person. Well, I've given you some examples of ones that I've actually followed. I know who my favorite person is because she is cool. And maybe you have a granny like this person. And I definitely want to be like this person when I'm a granny age. Audrey Sutherland, she was a normal lady with a normal life. And then she got a bit old, probably like me, getting a bit wrinkled, and also getting bad eyesight, not being able to read much, like me. Look, getting old. Let me put my glasses on so I can read. And she said, so she's not a professional adventurer. She's not some crazy person. She's just like your parents or your grandparents. And one day, she started dreaming and thinking, oh, I'd love to have adventures. And she looked in the mirror one day and she said to herself, getting older, aren't you, lady? Better do the adventurous things now. You can work at a desk later. So she quit her job and began planning her first adventure. So she is very cool. And also, she's got this great list of things you should be able to do before you're 16. Swim 400 meters, do the dishes, cook a meal. Lots of cool things. Clean a paintbrush, change a nappy. I think that's kind of hard to do when you're 16. Change a tire. That's good. On a bike. And where's a really silly one? Oh, yeah. Know how to clean a fish and dress a chicken. I think by dress a chicken, she means get it ready for cooking, not put clothes on for chicken. Anyway, we're getting distracted. Bruce, did you know any of the adventures you wrote about personally? So I told you about Benedict Allen, who walked across the Amazon. He was a hero of mine, but he's now become a friend. And I find it so weird. Sometimes I go to the pub with Benedict Allen. I sit opposite him, drinking a beer, talking about the weather. I think that's Benedict Allen I'm talking to. So that's pretty cool. Anyone else? Oh, yeah. Sarah Uten, who went around the world by bike and rowing. She's a friend of mine. She now does donkey therapy, helps people with their lives through donkeys. Any of these other people, my friends? Nah, that's it for friends, I'm afraid. I haven't got many friends. Izzy says, why did you write about not very well-known people, e.g. Michael Collins, not Neil Armstrong? That's a very, very clever, smart question. So if you look on Amazon for Book of Explorers, you'll be able to find loads. And they talk about Captain Scott and Captain Cook and Edmund Hillary and all the usual most famous adventurers. And they're famous because they've done interesting stuff. But I wanted to talk about the less obviously famous ones, but adventurers who I think have done amazing stuff and really inspired me in my own life. So yeah, Michael Collins. The reason I chose him, not Neil Armstrong, is because, well, it's weird. Because imagine being the first person on the moon. Very cool, of course. Second person, Buzz Aldrin, really cool. Although poor old Buzz, he seems to have spent the rest of his life being more jealous and sad and angry that he was the second on the moon, rather than thinking how wonderful it was to be the second on the moon. And then I'm really interested in Michael Collins because he was part of that team. The moon thing could not have happened without him. He was completely important to it. But he never stepped on the moon. He just went round and round the moon while those other two were there. And I find that really interesting. Would I be really thrilled to have been part of that team, or would I be jealous that I hadn't done it? So that's one reason. And then the other reason is because we go back to Joy's question. How do I know such people? I've read all these guys' books, but Michael Collins' book, Carrying the Fire, it's quite thick, is by far the best space book I've read. So that's why he got picked. Right. I hope I'm not talking too long here. Right, next question is, Isaac says, how long did you take to write this book? Right, I need to show you another book. Now. When I was a kid, I used to love reading these sorts of books. This is called the Victor Book for Boys. Of course, girls can read it just as well. And these were full of like stories of people going off on adventures and fighting monsters and quite a lot of army stories. I love these. And so I thought I'd really love to do a book like this about my adventure. So that was my first idea. Then you have to go and find a publisher who's willing to agree to it. And then you have to write the book. My problem is, because I'd read so much about all these people, I wrote way too many words. I wrote probably enough words for 10 of these books. And then when I sent it to the publisher, they said, this is ridiculous. You need to go away and remove almost every word, and then we'll do the pictures. So in the end, the whole thing took ages. It took, I guess, 1.5 years. And at the end of it, I said, I'm never, ever doing a book like this again because it's taken so long and it's driving me crazy. But then this book did quite well. So then the publisher said, hey, please, will you do another one? And my memory's very small. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I did a second one called Against the Odds, which is 20 more adventurers. And again, this took ages. And at the end of that, I said, I'm never doing another of these books again. And so far, I've kept my promise. But if you like Great Adventurers, I'd love it, actually, if you could get some copies of this, because this book took me ages to write, and it's been completely unsuccessful. Nobody's bought it, and it has really not succeeded at all, which is a shame, because it's got cool people in. Right. I'm getting quite tired now. Hallie, are you going to write any more books? So I wrote This book, The Boy Who Biked the World, which is kind of about me cycling around the world, but told with a boy called Tom. And then Tom's sister Lucy rows across the Atlantic Ocean, which is kind of what I did in real life. But I've run out of my books are falling over. I ran out of examples of my own stories. I've run out of adventures to talk about. So what I'm starting to do now is making up books. So I'm now writing a book for children in which I imagine Tom and Lucy team up and go off and have an adventure. And look, this is what the book currently looks like. Typed up and covered in red scribbles, like when you have to do your homework and you've got lots of corrections to do. And this book is about Tom and Lucy canoeing across America. It is called Canoe Challenge, and it will be in the shops in September. Please buy a copy because it's taken me ages. Eleanor said, did you write a book about yourself? I've written lots of books about myself. I'm a big show off, Eleanor. And look, here is one example. And this is kind of me, but I turned me into a kid. B says, are you ever going to write a book about other famous people, such as singers? You know, I'm really just Mr. Adventure Guy, although these days I've moved to being Mr. Nature Guy. I write books for adults as well, and I've just written a book for adults called Unwilded, which is coming out, drumroll, 4 weeks to not 10, 4 weeks tomorrow. 4 weeks tomorrow, my book called Unwild's coming out, Unwilded, and that's all about nature. So maybe I should write a book about nature people. Maybe you've given me a good idea there. B. The final question coming from Miss Burton, Miss Warren, is about where are you planning to go next? I've no idea. I've just finished this book, Unwilded, which took me about a year of climbing trees and messing about near where I live, and I've got no idea what to do next. I need to find a good idea. Well, thank you very much for your questions, really good questions, and thank you very much for your excellent questions. I think I just said that. Thank you for your questions and good luck with all of your own adventures. And thank you for reading my book. Did I say that 3 times? I think I did. This is a disaster. The end. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Thank you.